right, brethren, good morning, happy Sabbath, Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to the Sabbath Service AM to the U.S., PM to the UK for this fourth day of the 10th month on God's Holy Sacred Calendar. I know I said that incorrectly last night at the Bible study. I gave the date as the third day of the 10th month, but it's actually the fourth day of the 10th month. You know, the date changes at sunset during the day on the Hebrew calendar. So even though during the daytime portion of yesterday it was the third day of the 10th month, once the sun sets, the date changes. We don't wait till midnight like you were used to doing, sadly, on the Roman calendar. That's something we're going to have to unlearn, because when Jesus Christ returns, He's going to usher in and restore the kingdom of God that goes by God's sacred calendar, which is the Hebrew calendar of today. And the dates on the Hebrew calendar, just like at creation, change at sundown, at sunset. The evening and the morning were the first day, the evening and the morning were the second day. Well, listen, I got my new camera shots here a little bit confused. I think we can come in here on this one like this. Yeah, all right, there we go. On the, well, what do you call that thing? The Roman calendar, on the Gregorian calendar. It's the 19th day of December, and we gave the last week in the Bible study, week ago last night, Friday night Bible study, for what would that have been? That would have been, today's the 19th, yesterday was the 18th minus 7. On December 11, in the Bible study that evening, we presented God's end-time apostle Herbert Armstrong from a telecast that he gave entitled The Plain Truth About Christmas. And I mention that because friends, brethren, I'll just mention to the brethren that we have people that I refer to as friends who will stumble upon our telecast, as did a woman from the United States who's now living and working in Berlin, Germany, last night. Excuse me, who contacted me after our live stream and told me a little bit about what she's doing over there. And we will have people that are not familiar with the church that, brethren, you have been a part of for some length of time, whether recent or for a long time. Some of you born into the church in the sense that your parents were in the church. Makes you a 1 Corinthians 7 church kid, as I refer to it, because of the understanding we were given through God's end-time apostle as God showed him the understanding from 1 Corinthians 7, about verse 14, about how those of you who are born to a parent whom God has called into the church for the spring harvest are not cut off from God the way the rest of the world is. Excuse me. All right, we call this the Sabbath Service AM to the U.S., PM to the UK, because we get on extra early on Sabbath morning from where I am, and so that those who told me they want to watch before the sun goes down in the UK, Stephen, we'd like to be with you, and would you please get your live stream on before the Sabbath is over here and compute the time? Well, they're 5 hours ahead of us on the clock, so when it's 10:30 a.m., well, that's 5 o'clock from my time, and in some places it's 5 from the Eastern time zone, in some places 4 in the United Kingdom. So it's either 2:30 or 3:30 in the afternoon at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time in the United States, 9:30 a.m. In the Central time zone of the United States. Now, as I mentioned last night, I know that's extra early for those on the West Coast, and I pointed out, those of you on the West Coast, you have the option to watch. You don't have to tune in live at 7:30 a.m. in the morning. You can, as soon as we're off, within a few minutes, there's an archive video recording on Facebook, on YouTube, and then about an hour later, it takes me about an hour to get it up on Vimeo, but we also put it on Vimeo because some people like to watch there, some people watch on YouTube, some people watch on Facebook from the archive video. And you can get to our archive past videos for any date going back all the way back to 2011 if you go to our webpage at cogtv.org, as you can see it on the far right side of the lower third on your screen. And go to the archive. If you go to our homepage, then you'll find a menu selection on the right side of the screen, and just scroll down or look down till you see a menu tab that says Archive Videos. Click on that. It opens up to a page that's got all of our Sabbath service. It's also got the index for our World Watch when we were doing the nightly news program that, God willing, we're working on getting back on with some of our own reporters. I've got a reporter in the Middle East, located right in Israel, who has offered to give us live, direct reports for our newscast, and we're working on getting more. I'm talking about professional reporters who report for news reporting, broadcasting stations in those countries. And we're working on getting some more in other countries. So God may bless us with what's been happening with the changes to how we have to license our news video clips and pay big hunks of money. We may have our own people who are working for us. So we'll appreciate your prayers about that, because a number of you have said, Stephen, we'd like you to get that program back on the air. Well, I'd like to get it back on the air. We have some complications we're having to work through to do it. But it looks like God's going to open those doors. And I have a few other hoops we have to jump, but I'm working on that too. And I really appreciate your prayers. And I appreciate the encouragement some of you gave me last night, your appreciation, your thanks to God that we have these live streams that we can do on the Sabbath. And some of you put a personal note to me in there that you appreciate the work that I'm doing. You know, I appreciate that you've acknowledged, that you recognize that I am working very hard to do this. And I'll tell you the truth, it was a great struggle to get up this morning to have this service on while it's still the Sabbath over in the UK. I was up late last night looking at some of the things we would put in today's program that I promised I would find for you, and I did get those, and I'll click to those later in the program. I've got the slide I promised to show you of the crown of the Holy Roman Empire on display in Vienna in the Royal Treasury, in the Imperial Treasury of Hofburg over there. They call it the Royal Treasury for Austria, Vienna, city of Vienna in Austria. And I've been there. I saw it with my own eyes. I took my own picture, even though they don't allow the public to do that. I didn't know that at the time. The only thing the sign says is no flash. Well, I guess you can take pictures without flash of other things in the museum, but they do not allow you to take your own picture of the crown of the Holy Roman Empire. At least when I went over there, they didn't allow that. Well, I had taken a picture. The crown is behind thick glass, so I took pictures by honoring that sign to not use flash, and I pressed my camera. It was a 35 millimeter type camera back before the days of these marvelous little smartphone digital cameras with super megapixels, digital pic photos you can take and see them instantly. I pressed my old professional 35 millimeter camera loaded with, I think I had 35 millimeter slide film in it, and I pressed it hard up against the glass, and because it would need a time exposure because of the dim, warm lighting that they have. I'll show you the slide after we sing some hymns. And after Mr. Armstrong speaks, we'll bring that slide up, and I'll show it to you. I pressed the slide I'm going to show you shows the reflection in the glass, so you can see, oh yeah, this crown is in a glass cage, glass all the way around it. You can walk all the way around it and see the crown of the Holy Roman Empire that's being protected and on display in the royal treasury in Vienna. Lots of guards in there. You will not walk out with the crown. You might slip out with a picture. Now I went and told the guard, or I asked the guard later. I complained about the sign that said you can't take pictures with flash in there, and I said, you can't get a good picture of that crown without some flash, or a tripod where you can really get a good time exposure. But I got a time exposure by pressing my camera firmly against that thick glass. It's real thick, so it won't hurt the glass. I pressed real hard against the glass to hold my camera steady so I could do a 2-second, a 4-second, a 1 second, several different time exposures, and they came out. But I complained because I wanted a picture with flash to really make that crown sparkle. And I complained to the guard that, you can't really get a good picture of that crown without using flash. He said, well, you can't take a picture of that crown at all. That's against our rules here. You take a picture of that crown, we'll confiscate your camera. So I said, oh, okay, well, thank you for having the crown on display. Thank you for you fellows' good service, and zip. Say no more than that, Stephen, and leave with your camera before they confiscate it. So, not intentionally violating their policy or rule on that, but because I did it not unknowingly. I thought, I have an expensive camera. I don't want them guys confiscating my camera. And I had pictures from other places on there. They open up the camera to take that film out. I lose all those pictures from my previous parts of my trip. I'd been in Israel. I'd been through a train from France. I flew from Israel to France and took the train to Vienna. I thought the flights worked better to fly into France, and I thought, well, it'll be cool. I'm in no hurry. I was after a feast that year, and I thought it'll be cool to take a train tour from France through Germany and into Austria to Vienna. And it was cool. I really learned something, too. Like my sister told me when she was traveling in Germany, and all of a sudden she ran into the German military in some situation. I was able to tell my sister, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I ran into the same thing when I took a train through Germany. And France, no big deal. No military as you cross the border, nothing. But as you go into Germany, boom, the German military gets on board the train, and I felt like the train had been hijacked. They're stomping through, and they're checking everybody and their passports, and they're loaded with weapons, and they look like they meant business. If you had been somebody who would have caused them a problem, you'd have been yanked up by these guys and hauled off that train. But anyway, I made it all the way to Vienna, and I'll show you that picture in just a little bit. I got a hymn ready for us to sing here to open up service. We all get well awake at this early hour of Sabbath morning, at least early where I am. If you're watching from the UK, it is afternoon over there already, and we would start services at headquarters when Mr. Armstrong was alive, and when the church was one body, not scattered, and we had our headquarters in Pasadena, California. Services at headquarters would begin at 2:30 in the afternoon. Mr. Armstrong liked it that way. The rest of us liked it that way too. We had the Sabbath morning to pray, do our own little bit of study, meditation, have a nice Sabbath meal, and then come to services, fellowship with brethren, sit down to services for a couple of hours, sing hymns, be instructed, oftentimes by God's end-time apostle himself, and then be able to fellowship some more, and then maybe some of the brethren you meet up with the services go out and have evening dinner together. And that made for a nice and wonderful Sabbath. Well, today we're in a different situation, and those of you who are assembling here with us electronically, welcome. And again, a happy Sabbath to you. We're going to sing a hymn in just a moment, and I'll go ahead and tell you what Mr. Armstrong is going to speak about in the telecast that we'll be playing from 1982 this time. And oh yeah, there's one thing I didn't do. I got to change that lead. He was speaking on January 3rd, 1982. Now, you know, last night he was speaking from December 31st, 1981. And in the telecast from last night, he was showing video. If you saw that, you know what I'm saying. If you didn't, I want to encourage you to be sure and see the Bible study from last night. You got plenty of time left in the Sabbath if you're in the United States. Now, I know it's when we're off here, it'll be over. Sabbath will be over in the United Kingdom. But if you've got plenty of Sabbath time left and wondering, what am I going to do with the rest of the day? Well, if you didn't see the Bible study last night, now I know a lot of people from the United Kingdom have told me this. Stephen, for the morning service, we do a double service. They say, will you use your Friday night Bible study for our morning service? And then when you come on live, we join you live for either on YouTube or on Facebook for what's for them the afternoon service. That's why we say AM to the U.S., PM to the U.K. But last night's Bible study, we showed video from a telecast that was recorded. Now, it didn't air until 1982, but it was recorded on the last day of December in 1981, in which Mr. Armstrong showed an interview that he had not an interview, but interview, where he was interviewing and talking to, interviewing. It was really more of a meeting between God's end-time apostle Herbert Armstrong and the president of Egypt, Anwar Sadat. And that video, he showed that meeting, well, that private one-on-one discussion between Mr. Armstrong and President Sadat in the video from December 31st, 1981 that we showed last night in the Bible study. Now, in today's telecast, you're going to see video with Mr. Armstrong speaking with the man who became the new president of Egypt, and Mr. Mubarak, after Anwar Sadat had been assassinated. And Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Mubarak will discuss that assassination for a moment, and the arrangement that had been made with Mr. Sadat and Mr. Armstrong for the work, the Church of God, to contribute $100,000 a year for 10 years until a total of $1 million had been contributed to the religion? To the tri-faith building that Egypt was building at the base of Mount Sinai as a peace center among people of all nations and all religions. Well, by all religions, as they intended it to mean the known basic or larger religions of Judaism, Christian religion, as we know it from the world, as they know and understand it, and well, it would include the one I was just thinking of that might have been excluded, because of the religion primarily of Egypt being that where they recognize the the Creator God, but they call him Allah, but they use the Quran instead of the Holy Bible. But that represents, the Quran, for those who know the history of it, was actually written in large part by the Catholic Church and sponsored by the Vatican, as revealed by one of the Jesuit members of the Jesuit Society who worked in the Vatican in the secret library in the basement of the Vatican. He revealed, he had to wound up having to quit, the working at the Vatican over his making public the fact that the Catholic Church back in 600 AD-ish, circa 600 AD, had helped support the generals of Muhammad, his army, to take over the Kaaba in Mecca, and to go to Jerusalem and take over Jerusalem. And once they had captured it, the deal for the money for the armies was to turn Jerusalem over to the Vatican. And the generals, the army of Muhammad, was extremely successful. They conquered the old family that held the Kaaba in Mecca, and they took Jerusalem over with such force, killing the Christians and the Jews in Jerusalem to such a large scale, and just came in by massive numbers of Ishmaelites and took over Jerusalem, and they reneged on the deal with the Vatican. They said, "Mr. Pope, sorry, bub, our Quran that you helped write, you're saying that that they helped put input, that Abraham took his son Ishmael, his son by the Egyptian handmaid Hagar, up to the mountaintop and there in Jerusalem, Mount of Olives, out mountaintop there, and I might have that mount, the Temple Mount, where the Temple Mount is. I might have that name wrong, but they say that instead of taking Isaac, Abraham took Ishmael up there, and God intervened and made Ishmael the son of promise. So that's what you'll find in the Quran. That's probably the biggest lie in there, among others. But the people who read the Quran, they believe that. That's the book. That's the book of their religion, and that's the book of the Egyptians. And you're going to see Mr. Armstrong talking to the president, the new president of Egypt after Anwar Sadat was shot. Mr. Mubarak was right in the stand. You'll see this video. He was right in the stand with the former president Anwar Sadat at the time Mr. Sadat was shot and assassinated. And you'll hear that discussion and what Mr. Mubarak did right after the president was shot. And, as it was happening. A pretty traumatic event. So today's telecast is going to have some very interesting material in it. And Mr. Armstrong will then discuss the importance of watching the Middle East, as we are doing today, brethren. And one of the big things we were doing in the World Watch program, God willing, we get that back on, is to watch the Middle East. We will have our own correspondent from Israel as a live reporter for us during our news programs, and so we're going to keep you right up to the snuff, if that's an appropriate colloquial way to say it, as to what's happening in the world once God enables us to get that program back on. And I appreciate your prayers that it'll be sooner than later. By the way, Dane and Jacob, good morning. I do want to ask for prayers. Yeah, I didn't mean to hit that button. What did I do? I hit something that knocked our camera shot around. Let me see. I think we can, one or two ways I can come back. Which set is live? All right, I've got two new camera versions. Let me take you to this shot for a moment, because we've got on our screen, on this side, screen number 4, The Beast from the Ocean. I was going through it a little bit in detail last night. So another reason I encourage you to go see our program from last night if you missed it. Oh, I see why that shot messed up. Let me see what this is going to do. Oh, we lost our lower third for Mr. Armstrong. I think I can fix that while he's speaking. But, excuse me, in this camera shot we have a replica of the crown of the Holy Roman Empire that I was mentioning to you, that's on display over in the Royal Treasury in Vienna. And I'll show you the picture of the actual crown from there a little bit later. In the case, you'll see the reflection on the case. You'll see how thick that glass is. We've got a replica of the crown in our studio here because we're watching. The next major event in prophecy is the opening of the fifth seal, which opens with the beast from Revelation 17:8 ascending out of the abyss, as the original Greek is it's written, the abyss, and the word that German Chancellor Angela Merkel used in January last year, January 2019, as she, in great alarm and frustration, touted the members of Parliament of the United Kingdom for delaying the deal for them to Brexit, and knocking it around, the deal that the United Europe, EU, thought it had made with the then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. No, let's see, I'm using the wrong name. Theresa May. They thought they'd cut a deal with her. They worked out a deal with Theresa May, the then Prime Minister. But Mrs. May had not gotten the approval of the members of Parliament, which was required of her. And she was unable to get it. As you watched our news report, you saw 3 times she went through the voting process with the members of Parliament, and each time the vote, the majority of the vote came thumbs down. We're not approving that deal where we're going to have to pay so much money of the blessings that God gives to the modern-day descendants of Ephraim, the United Kingdom. We're not going to give them all that money. That's too much. And, whatever the reasons were that various members of Parliament voted down that deal. Some voted it down because they thought by continuing to delay that, eventually they could circumvent the referendum to exit, to have Britain exit, or in other words, the short-term Brexit. And that was a strategy that some used. And all of that frustrated, all that caused a lot of delay, and you could watch the bickering live on your smartphone or television because they had cameras inside the Parliament of the UK, and they just wide open with it all. And it frustrated members of the EU, and especially the German Chancellor Angela Merkel. She lashed out as she said, "You people better look into the abyss. You better look into the abyss," she said. And I nearly fell off my seat when I saw that. I recognized, boy, she's talking Bible language. That's Revelation 17, verse 8, that talks about the beast that was and is not, and yet shall ascend out of this bottomless pit, this abyss. The King James Version renders the abyss as bottomless pit. All right, we're going to cover more of that later. I want to get us awake with hymn and songs, and I wanted you to see we've got a replica of the crown of the Holy Roman Empire in our virtual studio setting here. And what we're going to do, though, is we're going to come in here and punch up one of the hymns that we can sing to get you involved in the service, get us all awake and involved, and then we'll go to Mr. Armstrong. And let's see, my new camera shots. I got to go to a different shot. All right, let's see how we're going to do this, Stephen. Well, let's come over here to. Okay, I think we can change this shot by coming over here to this screen, and then I have to switch to another layer. I'm still setting up new shots. I've learned how to do something a little different with the live streaming program that we use, and we can change this so that we got the hymn right there. Okay, now then I can go to this shot, and we're ready to sing one of the hymns. All right, Dale, Patrick, you guys with us this morning? All right, we were on the phone yesterday morning. We didn't get to talk again later in the day. I did see your message, or did we talk? Because Dale let me know that you got a hold of one of the people that were able to get you the exact dates you were looking for. And I'm wondering if Patrick also got the dates he needed from the school. They're applying for work at the Amazon nearby. So I'm encouraging them to learn how to lead the hymns, and then, God willing, they get down here, and when we do our Sabbath services, I'm going to, as the guys are ready, I'm going to have one or the other of them lead some of the hymns. I'm going to ask them if they'd like to lead some of the hymns, and then we'll have a little variety. I can take a break, we can all sing together, and let one of the young fellows lead the hymns. So I'm here with you leading them so that you guys can follow my lead how to lead a song. I'll just review it again. It's real simple. Actually, of course, you have to remember it, you have to get practiced in doing it, and you have to also be able to pick out the downbeat and the music. The hymn we're going to open with has a 4/4 count, and your 4/4 count for leading it is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's down, inside, outside, up. And of course, it's on the rhythm of the music. On the downbeat, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ready for the downbeat again? 1, 2, 3, 4. And sometimes we hold on 4. And then we jump to 1 real quick. 1. Okay, so if you guys face one another and try to follow what I'm doing, as you do it, you'll start to get it. I mean, we all, when fellows learned this at Ambassador College, the freshman class, as you would watch them, as they would have opportunity on Sabbath, during breakfast, we'd have an hour sing-along after breakfast. And as you'd watch, and it would be divided up, men would be called up to lead from each of the classes, freshman through senior class. And as you would watch the freshman men as they were learning to do this, you'd see them sometimes miss it up and struggle, but you'd keep singing, and they'd figure it out and catch back up with the downbeat. So if you get off, fellas, as you practice this, don't worry about it. Just wait till you hear a downbeat again, and then, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just as you're waiting, get your hands up on 4, ready for catching of 1 downbeat. Okay? All right. You have to just keep working on it till you get it. So we'll do another practice session today. This is a regular Sabbath. And we're going to do Psalm number 1 this morning, page 1. Blessed and happy is the man who never walks astray. All right, everybody together on verse 1. Blessed is the man who doth never walk astray, nor with the ungodly men stands in sinners' way. 2, 3, 4, all he does prospers well, but the wicked are not so. They are chaff before the wind, driven to and fro. Everybody on verse 2. Ne'er in scorner's chair he sits, for he places his delight in God's law and meditates on it day and night. On the chorus now. All he does prospers well, but the wicked are not so. They are chaff before the wind, driven to and fro. Verse 3, everybody, he shall be a tree that grows, planted by the riverside, which in season yields its fruit, green its leaves abide. 2, 3, 4, all he does prospers well, but the wicked are not so. They are chaff before the wind, driven to and fro. All right, brethren, thank you for those of you who sang along on that. And I tell you what I'd like to do. We got a couple of more hymns we could do, but I want us to come back and do those after we hear Mr. Armstrong speak. I want us to launch right into this this telecast talk he has this morning. Let's see, I'm back that up so we can catch it from the start. Okay, and this is, I should probably correct this real quickly before we begin. Let me go change the heading that we have to put up when Mr. Armstrong is speaking from a recording. All right, I got it now. It says 1982. And so, let's see. We'll go to this shot when we open it up. And here is God's End Time Apostle from a telecast. Again, he gave it on January 3rd in 1982. He'll be showing his meeting with the new president of Egypt after Anwar Sadat had been assassinated, the new president, Mubarak. And the title of this telecast is the Mideast Special, Part 1.
Keep your eyes on the Middle East. Our number one problem in this world now is the problem of human survival. And from now on, the number one trouble spot is going to be the Middle East. The boiling cauldron in the Middle East continues to boil over. Now, a little over a year ago, I had a personal meeting with President Anwar Sadat of Egypt in Cairo. Last October 6th, on the 8th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, the whole world was shocked and stunned by the assassination of President Sadat. The new President Mubarak was vice president under President Sadat. He was sitting right next to President Sadat in the reviewing stand of the parade that was being held on the 8th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War. As I said, that war had been provoked or really started by President Sadat. And later on, President Sadat went to Jerusalem to declare peace before the Israeli Knesset. And that was a wonderful thing. He had turned from war to peace. Instead of declaring war, he now declared peace. And that led to the Camp David talks and talks of peace. Nevertheless, he was having quite a parade and was sitting in the reviewing stand. Beside him was, as I say, the vice president, Mr. Mubarak, and just beyond him was my friend, Dr. Haddam, whom I know very well and spent quite a little time with very recently in Cairo again. Now, President Sadat was very greatly publicized in the United States. I think everybody was familiar with his picture in the United States. But the United States and the Western world have heard very little of the new President Mubarak. I had a meeting with the new president, Hosni Mubarak, at his palace in Cairo. I want to show you a picture about that in just a moment. I want to show it to you on recorded television film. But first let me say this. The President Sadat had planned to erect a peace complex at the base of Mount Sinai. Prime Minister Begin of Israel had agreed to give the Sinai Peninsula back to Egypt. And President Sadat was going to build this complex at the base of Mount Sinai to be a symbol for peace between the Arab world and Israel and the Christian world of the West. The complex was to include a mosque, a synagogue, and a church to symbolize the peace between the three nations, representing the religions of the three nations of Islam, Judah, and Christianity. The Mideast wars and all of the troubles in the Middle East seem to have stemmed from those three religions down through the centuries. And there's a reason for that. Well, more of that later. But first, I want to show you a portion of the meeting that I had just recently with President Mubarak at his palace in Cairo. Now, following the usual custom that has been long practiced since before the time that the wise men presented gifts to the Christ child who was born to be king, I presented a gift, of course, to President Mubarak, as I had a year before to President Sadat, a gift of Steuben crystal. And so, as you begin to see the televised portion of my interview with him, I was presenting this gift to him, which he was accepting. Happy to present it to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Well, Mr. President, you're going to continue, are you, the peace project of President Sadat?
Yes, of course.
And the Mount Sinai
Yes, of course.
peace plan. I'm
Yes, of course.
quite interested in that.
Yes, I know that very well.
And I have agreed to help support it, and as long as you continue, we
I know that very well.
supporting it. And we are going to contribute $100,000 a year. I would like to give you a check.
Yes, thank you very much. Very good.
$100,000. And for 10 years it will
For
be
10 years.
$1 million.
That's very good. It will be very supporting. We are
And
going.
there's a reason why we're very much interested in that. And there is a connection that I feel that most people have not understood, why the three nations are being brought together, and they are in this peace project, the United States and Egypt, representing, of course, the Arab world,
Yes.
even though they don't accept this at the present time, but the Arab world and Israel.
Yes.
And the peace project with the mosque and the synagogue and the church represents the three religions. Now, I'm going to speak on that Monday night.
That's right.
And
That's good.
I will try to explain a little of the history and why, a reason why most people don't realize that this Camp David peace conference came about. I don't think even the people in the United States understand it. The people in Israel don't understand it. And people have not understood it.
Yes,
But
I
there
agree
is
to
a
that.
reason why these three nations and why they're being bound together in a peace project. And I can tell you, we're going to have world peace, but this effort is not going to bring it. It is a preliminary, and it is a step in the right direction.
That's very
And
good.
I feel that I want to participate. But I don't believe in kidding ourselves, you know what I mean?
Yes, I know. Yes, I know.
Deceiving ourselves. It won't come that easy. But we are living in a creation. There has to be a creator.
Yes.
And in the Christian world, we call the creator God. And in the Hebrew world, or the world of Judaism, they call him God. And you call him Allah.
Yes, we call him
The
Allah.
same God.
Yes.
And God is going to bring us peace. But there is a reason why he is using these three nations now. And if we don't bring peace now,
Then what
at
will
least
happen?
it is going to come.
Yes.
Allah will bring us peace.
Of course.
And not only to these three nations, but to the whole world. It is going to come to the whole world. And I'm not in politics. I'm an observer. I just look on. I represent God, Allah, and all people. Not any one nation, not any one religion, not any one government. But I'm a friend of all, and I work for peace among all nations. And that is a contribution to peace. And as I say, we are not going to be able to bring peace ourselves. It'll be brought to us.
Yes.
But we should do what we can do. And we're doing what we can do. And I hope that peace will come. Now, day before yesterday, I had a nice conference with President Navan of Israel.
He was here.
Yeah, and you saw him on Tuesday.
Yes.
And even though he saw you Tuesday, he wanted me to bring you his personal regards.
Thank you very much.
And
he's a good man. He's a nice man.
Glad to see you together. And I know Prime Minister Begin very well. The last time I saw him, we wound up with a big bear hug together.
Yes.
And as I say, I know many of the heads of government around the world. I know Mrs. Gandhi. And I've been decorated by King Hussein. I've been decorated by the Emperor of Japan with the highest decoration ever given to a non-official alien. And King Bhumipol of Thailand. And I've helped him in a project with his mountain people in getting rid of the opium traffic. And well, I know many of the heads of state all over the world, and it's a pleasure to know you too now. And I hope you will be able to continue this project, and that God, or shall I say Allah, will protect your life.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much.
President Sadat risked his life for peace. He had no personal motive to gain. Nothing but peace. And he risked everything for it. And I think, I have to say, he was a great man for doing that. I hope to see Mrs. Sadat tomorrow, and I have many photographs to bring her of herself and the president when they were in Bonn.
In Bonn?
In Bonn, Germany.
Yes.
Now, it happens that the official photographer for the government in Bonn also works for me. And I have those photographs to present to her, and I hope she will be glad to receive them. She received us very nicely last year, and we were waiting while the president wanted to speak to a group of American congressmen before he came in to see me, and she entertained us until President Sadat came in.
Yes.
Now, what message would you like me to convey to the American people?
Yes. First of all, I could thank you very much for your contribution for the peace. We consider it a good contribution for the peace. I could tell the American people that we thank them very much for that good effort they did supporting our late President Sadat in his initiative, in his peace process. He had the full support from the United States and the people of the United States and the government of the United States. Peace is a very precious thing to obtain. It can't be obtained easily or without sacrifice.
That's right. We can't have peace without sacrifice.
President Sadat was a very courageous man.
Very.
He was a man of peace. He sacrificed himself for the peace. And inshallah, as we say, we are going to reach peace, at least in this area. Peace will come to us, but we have to do some effort for the peace.
It's going to take effort.
Yes. It's not an easy thing, as I mentioned. It needs tremendous effort, but we are going to push it until we reach it.
And keep it up no matter what the cost.
Yes, it's very, very important. Our people likes peace.
Good.
They want peace.
Good.
At least to live in a very peaceful atmosphere with all their neighbors around us. And we are going to do our best in this direction. I'm going to do the maximum.
I hope that all of your Arab neighbors in the Arab world will come to see and to cooperate too in peace,
Yes.
which we all must have sooner or later.
Believe me, all the people in the Arab world, and not only in the Arab world, all over the world, wanted peace. Our friends in the Arab world, although they didn't realize the effort done by President Sadat for peace, yet they are going to realize the importance of what President Sadat have done and sacrificed himself for this mission, peace. It will take some time for them, although I know they started to realize what late President Sadat of Egypt done for the peace process. We are giving them the example between
You're
Egypt,
setting a wonderful example.
a good example between us and Israel, Egypt
Yes.
and Israel. I think peace will prevail sooner or later, whether we like it or we don't like it.
That's right. Now, while I think of it, could you select a good photograph that you like in color of yourself? I would like to do a color story in our magazine, The Plain Truth. It has a worldwide circulation in 5 languages,
Yes.
4 million copies.
I'll give you
I
a
would
copy.
like to do
Yes.
you a cover story,
Yes.
which I will write myself.
All right, I'm going to send it to you.
But would you see that I have that photograph? And I'll have you on the front cover.
All right, I'm going to send it to you
Good.
before you leave, yes. Thank you very much for that, and I hope we could reach comprehensive peace in the whole, in this area, at least.
I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for this contribution. We are going for the peace,
You keep up the peace effort.
of course.
We'll keep up the contribution.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Now, after my meeting with President Mubarak, I did have a very nice visit with Madame Jihan Sadat. I had not intended to mention anything to her about the assassination because I thought she would be grieved about it and didn't want to hear about the news or discuss it in any way at all. But she did take about 25 or 30 minutes to tell me the intimate details of that assassination. She also was sitting in the reviewing stand with 2 of her grandchildren and with her maid. And at the time of the first shot, her maid slammed her and the grandchildren down onto the platform and threw her own body over them to protect them so that they were entirely unharmed. But she told me what a terrifying thing it was. And Madame Sadat was a very gracious First Lady. She is now completing a PhD degree, Doctor of Philosophy degree in the university. Even though she is a grandmother, she is very well educated and a very charming lady indeed. Now, what is the connection between the 3 religions and these 3 peoples that are involved in the Middle East? Let me give you a little something on that. The Jews are descended from Abraham, the ancient Abraham of the Bible, through Isaac, through Jacob, and Judah. The Arab world are descendants of Abraham also, but through Ishmael, the first son of Abraham. Now, much of the Christian world is descended from Abraham through Isaac and through Jacob and through Jacob's son Joseph, although they don't know it and don't know their own identity. And with that loss was the identification that is the key that unlocks Bible prophecy to understanding. Now, about 1/3 of all the Bible is prophecy, and yet it is not understood at all. You might say it just is not generally understood, because the key has been missing. And that key is the identity of where the United States and the British-speaking and English-speaking people are mentioned in the Bible. We are mentioned many places in the Bible. You never realize the United States is mentioned in the Bible. The Bible mentions little countries like Ethiopia. It mentions a lot about Egypt. It mentions many other countries that are still extant today. But did you know that the United States and Britain and the country where most of this program is being heard are also mentioned in the pages of the Bible prophecy? I'd like to send you a book that explains that and explains just where we are mentioned in the Bible prophecy. This is quite a little book, about 200 and some pages. It's very well illustrated in full color. The United States and Britain in prophecy. Or you might say it is the United States and the English-speaking people that are mentioned. This booklet is profuse with illustrations in full color. It's a full booklet. It will astonish you. Thousands of people have really been astounded, and their eyes have been opened to something that they never knew before, where we are mentioned in the Bible and in its prophecies. And it opens up biblical prophecy to our understanding so you can really understand it. Now, there's no charge. This is quite a little book. I'm glad to send it to you, free, no obligation, no request for money, no follow-up. That is our program. That is our policy. I don't know of any other like it, but that is our policy. We believe it's God's policy. I believe in God's way. You know, there are two ways of life. One is giving and the other is getting. And this world is on the getting principle. I learned almost 56 years ago that God's way of life is giving. You know, the greatest giver in the universe is God. God is the great giver. God is not a getter. He is the great giver. And I learned the way of giving, and I've tried to live that way ever since. And God has blessed me in living that way, and He will bless you if you live that way. I'd like to have you get this book, and there's no charge. I think you'll understand why we make no charge. I'm Herbert W. Armstrong. Goodbye, friends.
All right, thank you, Mr. Armstrong, and thank you to those of you who are tuned in with us this morning or watching later from the archive. Mr. Armstrong speaking again from 1982, January 3rd, 1982, and showing video of the year before when he had his meeting with President Hosni Mubarak of Egypt, who took over the presidency after the former president Anwar Sadat had been shot in an assassination. You saw the video. All right, now, I told you I would show you a picture of the crown of the Holy Roman Empire that we have that shows inside the glass. Let's see if we can get the lower third here out of the way, and we'll bring that that slide full screen. This is the actual crown of the Holy Roman Empire as it's seen in the glass cage. I think we can zoom this shot out a little bit. Let me see if I can find the right button that will get the whole whole the whole slide in there where you can view it a little better. I think maybe this slide right here. Yeah, this will widen it out a little bit. You can see over toward the left side the reflection in the glass of the crown of the of the Holy Roman Empire, that from the natural lighting in the royal treasury, causing the crown to reflect on the glass. And there's glass all the way around. You can see three sides of the glass in this photograph. There's the back glass. You see the reflection in the back glass, and then you see the right side of the display, and then you can see beyond the display on the glass on the right side of the display. And then we're looking into the glass from the front side of the display. And of course the left side also, there's glass over in that side too. You can walk all the way around this glass display. It's very thick glass. I think you can see from the edging in the display case, it's pretty thick glass. And yeah, there's plenty. You're not going to break that glass and walk out of that royal treasury with that crown. There are lots of guards there. That display has an electronic alarm on it. If that glass is broken, it'll sound. And those guards will rush you down quicker than you can say banana boat, And I'm going to put you off on a banana boat. I'll haul you off. And you'll wish you hadn't tried that. That crown is in reserve for the next and last emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. That empire is going to be revisited, going to be restored one last time, its final time, and it's going to be resurrected in a very grandiose manner. The seventh king of Revelation 17, verse 10, who will be the king of the north, that'll be crowned as this king of the emperor of the seventh dynasty. The King James Version refers to that emperor as the seventh king. And verse 8 of Revelation 17 refers to that emperor, king, ascending out of the abyss, the original Greek word, the word that German Chancellor Angela Merkel used in January 2019 as she touted the members of Parliament in the United Kingdom and in the whole world. If you really look at it, she was touting the whole world to, you better look into the abyss. And thank you, Mrs. Merkel. You're doing my job. Giving the warning message to the people of the world to take a look into the book of Revelation. She was making as if it were a quote. In essence, she was referring to verse 8 of chapter 17 of Revelation. And let's read that together. I have a scripture I'll put up on the screen in a moment that tells us something we should be doing, and then we're going to sing another couple of hymns this morning. Let you all of you be involved in today's service a little bit more. Now, you fellows leading songs, I got an extra measure for you as you learn that I'll tell you about in a moment when I put the next hymn up. Verse 8, Revelation 17. I hope you're looking at it in your own Bible. I'll read it to you from one of mine. The beast. Verse 8 of Revelation 17 starts out by saying, the beast that you saw was... Now, let me just give you some background real quick, or reminder. The Apostle John is writing the book of Revelation after he was taken in vision to God's throne in heaven, and with Jesus Christ being instructed by the Father to give John some things to write down. And as he wrote here in Revelation 17, which is addressed, well, not necessarily to, but it was written regarding a woman in prophecy, that in prophecy a woman is a church. In Revelation 12, that woman pictures the true church. In this chapter, 17, that woman pictures a great false church. She's referred to in verse 9 of Revelation 12, when God talks about the devil being cast back down to the earth, and that devil, known as the great dragon, the old serpent, also known as the devil and Satan, who was cast down to the earth, who deceiveth a few people here and a few people there on the earth. No, that's not what verse 9 of Revelation 12 says. It says that devil deceiveth the whole world. Oh, Stephen, how can you say that? Well, I'm just quoting you the verse. Take a look at it, your own Bible. Revelation 12, verse 9. The old dragon, that great dragon, the old serpent, called the devil and Satan, who deceiveth the whole world. It's right there in the scripture, in your Bible. Revelation 12, verse 9. So, and then the rest of the chapter is talking about what happens to the woman who pictures the true church, how she's given 2 wings of a great eagle to escape the wrath of the devil that comes when this crown is worn again for its final time, when the 5th seal opens up, when the Great Tribulation begins. That Great Tribulation begins because the beast that's spoken of here in the verse we're reading, verse 8 of chapter 17 of Revelation, the beast that was and is not and yet shall ascend. Now it ascended from the abyss where it had been for over 100 years, from 1814 to 1935. It had been in the abyss, but in a duality type of the prophecy, in a type. The beast ascended in the form of Mussolini in the fall of 1935 until the spring of 1945, when Mussolini was shot in the belly, hung upside down along with his comrades and mistress from the canopy of a gasoline station in Italy. And that ended the 6th kingship of... Let me come back to verse 8. Let's read verse 10 for a moment first. Verse 10 speaks of there being 7 kings. Let's read that. And there are 7 kings. 5, the next part of the verse says, 5 of those 7 kings, 5 are fallen. Those 5 that are fallen are Justinian through Napoleon. Justinian, who restored the imperial form of government in 554 AD. Now, the imperial form of government being a form of government where the emperor is appointed by a religious leader of the Vatican, by a pope, who goes over to Frankfurt, Germany for the occasion, for the coronation ceremony, takes the crown of the Holy Roman Empire, this crown, and places it upon the head of a new dynasty, of a new emperor of the dynasty, one of the kings of Revelation 17, verse 10, one of the 7 kings. The next part of the verse mentions the 5 that are fallen: Justinian from 554 AD through Napoleon in the spring of 1814 when he lost the Battle of 1813. I went over this in some detail last night, so if you want more detail than I may be going to give you this morning, I refer you back to last night's Bible study, which you can, let me put that lower third on the screen again, where you can see our web page address. On the far right side of the screen where you see cogtv.org, that'll take you to our web page. You can also get to it via Sabbath.tv. You'll just have to use the menus on the side column to get to the home page. And then you want to go to actually the archive video page and look for last night's date. Today's the 19th. Last night would have been the 18th on the Roman calendar. We index it by the Roman calendar date. We still are in the Roman world. Everybody's accustomed to using the Roman calendar. And it distinguishes last night's Bible study by the date of 18 December 2020. So you can get more detail on what I'm telling you now from last night's Bible study. But the Pope places this crown upon the head of the new kings. And if tradition and history follow, this crown that's being very well protected by guards in the royal treasury at Vienna, Austria. If you're able, once this pandemic tones down, if you're able to take a vacation and go somewhere overseas, or if you're over there already, this is a marvelous trip to make. Vienna's got the big symphony orchestra hall there. They got lots of wonderful things to see. That museum itself, the Royal Treasury, has other things to see that you might find fascinating and things to visit. But this was my primary purpose in going. Anything else I did was just extremely secondary. This was the primary reason I flew from Israel to France to take a train through Germany into Austria and get to Vienna to go to the Royal Treasury and see this crown with my own eyeballs, which I did sometime in the early 1980s. And to know that this symbol of the emperor of a revived Holy Roman Empire. Let's go back to verse 8 and hear and compare the history of with the verse and what's being said here. The beast that represents the Holy Roman Empire that's going to wear this crown for one last time. Its leader, the beast represents both the leader and the entire system of the Holy Roman Empire. The beast that you saw was... Now, what is the Bible saying here when it says, the beast that you saw was and is not and shall ascend out of the abyss, the bottomless pit, as the King James Version renders it? What does it mean, this beast was and is not, and yet shall ascend? Well, it was active as a government from 554 A.D. with Justinian, when he restored the imperial form of government, a government that is appointed by the Pope. Its leader, the emperor, appointed and crowned by the Pope in a coronation ceremony in Frankfurt, Germany, using this crown. And they crowned Justinian in 554. Then, following Justinian, the second dynasty of that seven kingship was Charlemagne, followed by Otto the Great, followed by Charles V. He was the fourth of the five kings that are fallen, followed by Napoleon. Now, why are these five, Justinian through Napoleon, Justinian, Charlemagne, Otto the Great, Charles V, and Napoleon, why are these five called or referred to as referenced as five are fallen? Why fallen? Why these five? Because they had a continuous reign from 554 with that restoration of the imperial form of government with Justinian until Napoleon lost the Battle of 1813 in the spring of 1814. He lost that battle. It's called the Battle of 1813. It started in the fall of 1813. It ended in the spring of 1814. When he lost that battle, when Napoleon lost that battle, he lost the Holy Roman Empire. He lost the crown of the Holy Roman Empire. He lost the rulership, the reign. Now, he tried a big comeback effort the following year in 1815 with a battle you've well heard about, the Battle of Waterloo. I'm sure you've heard about that. People today use the colloquial expression, when you fail at something big, as your Waterloo. And that was a big battle. Napoleon spent a whole year after he lost the Battle of 1813 and 1814. He spent a whole year from 1814 to 1815 going through the countrysides, rounding up soldiers to be part of his new army for a comeback effort. Waterloo was a comeback effort, an effort to regain this crown and have the Holy Roman Empire come back into the fore. But God was not going to allow that because of a prophecy God had made, that kingdom would have 1,260-year continuous reign, which it did. It was active in a continuous reign from 554 to 1814 AD, and if you do the math, put down 1814 and subtract 554 from it, you come up with 1260. And that's the prophetic number that tells you something there. Ooh, and that 5 that are fallen, many students of Bible and prophecy understand that. That's not something new. But the next part of this is new and was unknown until God revealed it in these latter days through his end-time servant and apostle Herbert Armstrong. The next part of verse 10 says, after it says there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, then it says, and 1 is. So you got 7 kings, you got 5 fallen, and you got 1 is. We're talking about the 6th king now with the 1 is. All right, let's go back to verse 8, because we're going to see how that 1 is came about. Back to verse 8, it says, the beast that you saw was. It was between 554 and 1814. It was active. And is not. It became is not active, became inactive between 1814 and 1935 when the next part of verse 8 occurred. And shall ascend out of the abyss. Now this is the duality type of prophecy in its forerunner type. When Mussolini ascended out of the abyss as the 1 is, the 6th king, he himself announced, after he had gotten a concord from the Vatican to go in and conquer Ethiopia, and after he successfully conquered Ethiopia, he then proclaimed himself the new Il Duce, the new Julius Caesar, saying, I have revived the Holy Roman Empire. God caused his end-time apostle Herbert Armstrong to take note of that and to be able to put 2 and 2 together, to put the jigsaw piece together here in its proper context, and understand that Mussolini's bold and brash words in his concordant from the Vatican had in fact was a fulfillment of this 1 is of Revelation 17 verse 10, then fulfilling the first forerunner part of this prophecy in verse 8 that says, and shall ascend out of the abyss. It's going to do it again in duality in a much greater fashion the next time, because Mussolini was shot in the belly, hung upside down, as I mentioned earlier, from the canopy of an Esso gasoline station in Italy, ending the 1 is, ending the 6th kingship. But back to verse 10. Now verse 10 goes on to say, after saying there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is. Now all of that's, the 5 fallen and the 1 is now past history, because the 1 is has come and gone. He was only is, present tense 1 is, between 1935 and 1945. To be even more exact, between the fall of 1935 and the spring of 1945. And the 1 is no more now. It's just like verse 8 saying, the beast that was and is not. So you had 2 occasions of that already. You had, it was active between 554 and 1814 AD. Then it was is not between 1814 and 1935 when the beast was dormant, in the abyss, dormant, sleeping, healing, being revived, being made ready for an ascension from that abyss, as it did for the 6th kingship with Mussolini. But then he died, was killed, and put the empire, the Holy Roman Empire, the beast that is the Holy Roman Empire, back into the abyss again, ready for the duality of prophecy to be played out with the next king, the 7th king. Verse 10 puts it this way: there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other being the 7th, because 5, the 5 that are fallen are 5 of those 7. The 1 is the 6th one of those 7. Now the 1 is no more. And the other who is not yet to come, mentioned in that next part of verse 10 of Revelation 17, is your 7th king. The 7th king, is not yet come. Let me see if I'm reading that to you Let me see if I'm quoting it to you correctly. Verse 10, and there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. Yes, that's exactly how it says it in the King James. Okay, we're going to have to get to another song in a moment. My voice is about to go out on me here, but let's see if we can finish this. The other is not yet come is your 7th king. And if we go back to verse 8, what's he going to do? He's duality and prophecy. The 7th king is going to do the same thing that the 6th king with Mussolini did, and that is ascend out of the bottomless pit. Only he's going to fulfill this prophecy more fully and go into perdition, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, those Daniel mentions as the wise of these end-time days, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. Yet is, because the earlier part of this verse saying he shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and restore that Holy Roman Empire, wear this crown one last time during the 7th dynasty, the 7th kingship of the power of the beast, of the resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire. And that's what we're watching for now. When that happens, that is the opening of the 5th seal, because that leader, that beast of the Holy Roman Empire, will begin the period called the Great Tribulation, a period of 3.5 years before Christ returns. For the first 2.5 years being representing the pouring out of the wrath of the devil, of man and Satan. And then the 6th seal, now that pictures the 5th seal. The 5th seal, Great Tribulation. The 6th seal of Revelation pictures the heavenly symbols, is symbolic of the signs in the heavens that God will perform. The astro signs in the sun, the moon, the stars. He'll make the sun go dark, Joel 2, verse 28. The sun go dark, the stars fall from the heavens, and the moon appear as blood, which it does when you cut the sunlight off from it. The atmosphere makes it look blood red. And that is a signal that we're now 2.5 years into the 3.5 years of Great Tribulation, with 1 year left to go, and that 1 year will be the opening of the 7th seal, year-long day of the Lord. A day in prophecy, Numbers 14:29, being as a year. The day of the Lord being a year-long day of God pouring out his wrath. No, the day of the Lord is not the day of Baal. It's not Sunday. It's the day of God. And it's a prophetic day of 1 year of God pouring out his wrath upon mankind for following the devil and the beast, following that Holy Roman Empire and having the world worship the image of this beast, and having true Christians be martyred for refusing to work on the Sabbath. Now, you can be protected from that. God tells us in Luke 21, verse 36, that if you will watch the active seals. When Christ said this in verse 36 of Luke 21, he had been explaining in plain language in that chapter, Luke 21, also in the parallel chapters of Matthew 24 and Mark 13. Christ had been explaining in plain language the seals of Revelation. And at the point in verse 36 when he's saying, watch, he's saying, watch the first 4 seals, which are the only ones of the 7 that were then present and now are presently active. The 5th seal has not opened yet. When the 5th seal opens, this crown will be worn for its last time. The Great Tribulation will begin a clock down count of 3.5 years. And several other things that will happen that I've gone to in detail in other Bible studies or sermons, telling you how about 7 different events occur when the Great Tribulation opens. I'll just mention a few of them now. The two witnesses will begin their testimony. Those who are counted worthy to escape will be taken to a place of protection on the earth, a wilderness area described in Daniel 11, verse 41. No, ma'am, it's not your home. I mean, look, what did God do with Lot and his wife when he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? A destruction greater than Sodom and Gomorrah is prophesied by God through the prophet Ezekiel for us in these last days, with an event that could never have happened before the invention of the hydrogen bomb. In chapter 6 and verse 6 of Ezekiel, there's a prophecy. And like Mr. Armstrong was saying in the telecast, you can't understand prophecy unless you understand who is who in the Bible. And when you understand that the modern-day sons of Israel, the 12 tribes, 10 that were lost, are now discovered and found, we know where they are today. And a couple of the biggest countries in the world, the United States, the United Kingdom, are representative and were gifts God gave to his offspring of Joseph in fulfillment of a birthright promise to Joseph's twin sons, Ephraim, who today, the modern-day descendants of Ephraim, are found primarily in the United Kingdom, and of Ephraim's twin brother, Joseph's twin son, Manasseh, today in the United States. And so when you understand who's who, you understand this prophecy written to the birthright sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, in Ezekiel chapter 6 and verse 6, that says, again, something that could never have happened before these end days, during which the hydrogen bomb, tested successfully only in 1945, was created. So only since then could this prophecy in Ezekiel 6:6 be fulfilled that says, Joseph, if your offspring do not repent of your rebellion and your sins before God, all of your cities will be laid waste, razed to the ground, destroyed. And that is exactly what the generals of World War II, toward the end of World War II, said they would do at the beginning of the next round of war. They said, we know how we lost this battle. They didn't say we lost the war. They say, we know how we lost this battle. And we're not going to make that mistake next time. Their explanation was that they failed to knock out the superpowers first. They had too much war activity going, too many fronts. They said, next time, they didn't know that one of the superpowers would get involved in the way it did, the United States. They said, next time, before we take on the next round of World War, where we're going to rule the world, we're going to knock out the superpowers. We're going to knock out the United States. We're going to knock out the United Kingdom. And of course, that also means they're going to knock out or take captive Russia. But the prophecy for a complete knocking out of a country only applies to the Israelite countries and the birthright sons of Israel. Ephraim, the United Kingdom, Manasseh, the United States. All of your cities will be laid waste. That's the first thing the beast, when he gets this crown on his head, that's the first thing he's going to do. He's going to commence round 3 of World War, and before it becomes known to the world that he's commenced round 3 of World War, he's going to blitzkrieg, do a surprise attack against the United Kingdom and the United States. As God's end-time apostle put it, he will send those missiles off, and United Kingdom being closer, boom, they'll hit the cities in the United Kingdom, and then later that same day the missiles will have reached, or the next day if it's after midnight, will have reached the United States. And like Russia said, they already have technology. They have stealth missiles that fly at altitudes and in erratic flight plans such that no present or future defense system can knock them out before they reach their target. All the beast has to do is knock out Russia, grab those missiles Russia has, as I pointed out last night, as President Putin announced to the world. Actually, he was doing his address to the nation that the world media was able to pick up in March of 2019, when he stated that we've got missiles with these hydrogen bombs pointed at every American major strategic command post, and on top of that, we have them pointed at 130 American cities. God's end-time apostle showed video of how it would only take knocking out 13 of America's major cities to completely destroy our system, our economic system based on the dollar. And Russia has announced that it has 10 times that many, 10 times 13 cities. They've got missiles pointed at 130. Very interesting, friends, brethren, is it not, that God's end-time apostle was inspired to say, just knock out 13 cities, you've destroyed us. And here Putin then comes along and announces, we've got missiles pointed at 130, exactly 10 times the number of cities it would take to knock out the country. We've got missiles pointed at 130 of your cities. And on top of that, we've got other missiles pointed directly at your strategic military command post in America. The stage is set, friends, for what the beast will do at the commencement of his wearing of this crown for its seventh and final time. He's going to fulfill Ezekiel 6. And God tells us in Isaiah 10 and verses 5 and 6 that he uses the Assyrians. Do you know, now Mr. Armstrong explained in this telecast how the modern-day sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are your Jewish people through Judah and your Christian people through Joseph. And more specifically, and we'll go into this in detail in another time, or you can read that booklet, and we have that booklet. We've read it for you, each chapter in video, that you can find on our website in the archive video page. Go to cogtv.org, look for the menu items on the right side, look for the one that says archive video, punch that up, scan through the index, and you can find one that shows week by week we were reading a chapter from the United States and Britain in prophecy. So you can kick back and have each chapter read to you. That'll take about, how many chapters? It'd take about 12 or 14 hours to go through the whole thing as we read it to you. You know, you can get the book online, read that. We've got that book in our library, which you can also get on cogtv.org by looking for the library menu item on the right column. And then scroll through the library index for United States and Britain in prophecy, and we got the book. You can read it. Or you go to the archive video and have it read for you. I think some of the fellows in New York, I believe you guys were helping me read those chapters. And just listen by week as we went from one week to the next, Bible study and Sabbath services, going through chapter after chapter in the United States and Britain in prophecy. And you'll see the explanation there of who's who in the sons of Jacob and where they are today. And we know, with the details we're able to know, and the Bible prophecies about where the people would be and who they would be, we know that the two sons of Joseph are today the modern-day descendants of the United Kingdom for Ephraim, modern-day descendants of modern-day descendants of Manasseh are in the United States, and the modern-day descendants of Ephraim are in the United Kingdom. And we know the prophecy of Ezekiel 6:6, that those cities of those descendants are going to be destroyed unless we repent. And God says, no, you're stubborn as a heifer. The only way you'll repent is when I put you in captivity. And I'm going to have to kill off 2/3 of your people first, take the 1/3 that remain into captivity, during this time of great tribulation. Many of those in captivity will be killed. And then at the end of that 3.5 years, when Jesus Christ returns on the seventh trump of the seventh seal, that seventh seal occurring during the last year of this great tribulation of 3.5 years, with Christ returning on the seventh trump. There being 6 trumpets first, the first 4 being the 4 winds, destruction on the earth, the last 3 trumpets being the 3 woes, the 5th trumpet being the first woe, 6th trumpet being the second worst woe, and the 7th trumpet being the 3rd woe, the great and terrifying 3rd woe, upon which, when Christ returns, he comes with the 7th angel who brings the 7 vials to be poured out as the 7 last plagues. That happens after Christ returns, after those who are accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man. The second part of Luke 21:36 says, if you watch and you pray always, you get 2 wonderful promises. You get accounted worthy to escape the great tribulation by being in a place of nourishment and protection, safety, final training during those 3.5 years before Christ returns. And you're accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man. This is second, the last part of verse 36 of Luke 21. You're accounted worthy to stand before the Son of Man in the first resurrection, when Christ returns, which happens when Christ returns on that 7th trump, before the 3rd woe, 7 vials are poured out, which will happen as part of that 7th trumpet. Christ returns, brings the angel. Those who are counted worthy to stand before God are transformed, born into God's kingdom, transformed from mortal flesh to immortal spirit, from corruptible to incorruptible. And then the 7 last plagues are poured out. Those 7 vials of 7 last plagues are poured out, a terrible punishment upon the earth. And of those 3rd that were taken captive, and of the population of the whole world, the hairs in the skirt in Ezekiel prophesy to show us that only about 10% of the world's total population will be allowed to live over into the world as a new world, the world tomorrow, that Jesus Christ will be ushering in as he restores the kingdom of God back to this earth upon his return on the 7th trump. Now, I tried to put that across to you as simply as I could. It's best if we get some graphics up on the screen. I've done it that way with graphics before. Make yourself a spreadsheet, as God's end-time apostle instructed us to do, if you really want to understand these more complicated, detailed prophecies from Revelation and Daniel and the Gospels, Matthew, the Olivet prophecies of Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21, the 3 parallel chapters of the Olivet prophecy. And some of the other things that will occur during this great tribulation simultaneously. I mentioned the 2 witnesses will be prophesying. We will have already encountered a famine of the word, 70, that is prophesied to occur 75 days before this 5th seal opens with the great tribulation and the beast ascending out of the abyss to wear this crown that represents the Holy Roman Empire, that represents the time of the Great Tribulation, that represents the 5th seal. Famine of the word will already have come. The internet will have been cut off, with access to God's end-time apostle, with access to our Sabbath services here, with access to our Bible studies. Unless you've downloaded some and kept them on your own computer, zap. But you're only going to have so long you can use that anyway, because once the 75 days after the famine of the word occurs, 75 days later, the beast ascends out of the abyss. The Great Tribulation begins. It commences with the destruction of the United Kingdom and the United States, all your cities being laid waste, 1/3 of the people killed on direct hit of the missiles, a 2/3 killed from the 3rd and 4th horses of famine and disease epidemic. They'll die. 1/3 will die from the fallout from those missiles. And then God says the 1/3 who remain alive will be taken captive by those that he describes, he uses in Isaiah 10, verses 5 and 6, God's saying he uses the Assyrians, and your modern-day Assyrians today are who? Brethren, you know the answer to that. Maybe some of you who stumbled in on this don't, and I'll just tell you, but you need to read the United States and Britain in Prophecy to get the details on this and really understand it. But your modern-day Assyrians are your Germans and your Austrians. You know, this is historical. You can trace it. You can see their history back through the Caspian area, where the Caucasian area, where they held the lost 10 tribes of Israel captive, and then before that, how they took over Samaria, and then later Judea. And those were your Assyrians. God was using them, just like he says he does in Isaiah 10, verses 5 and 6. Let's take a look at that. I think we have time. Well, we're going to sing another couple of hymns before we go. We'll do that after I cover this with you. Isaiah 10, verses 5 and 6 tell us that it starts out by God addressing directly the Assyrian, saying, "O Assyrian." And then God describes what his position in relation is to Assyrian. "The rod of my correction." O Assyrian, the rod of my correction. Well, he says it this way. I misquoted it, I'm sorry, but it's saying the same thing. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, God says. And then God adds to that, and the next part of this verse, the last part of verse 5, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. God's anger and indignation are in the hands of the Assyrian. And it expounds it even further in the next verse 6. I will send him, he's referring back to verse 5 now, the modern day Assyrians. I will send him, the Assyrians, the modern day Assyrians, I will send him against an hypocritical nation, against the people of my wrath, God says. Now, who would be the people of God's wrath? And who would be a hypocritical nation other than the people whose forefathers, our forefathers, stood before God at Mount Sinai and did obeisance? Oh, yes, God, you give us all these wonderful blessings you promised. Oh, yeah, we'll obey. And then immediately go right out and commit the biggest orgy you ever heard about in the history of man, while Moses was up on the Mount Sinai receiving the 10 Commandments from God, one of which is don't commit sexual sins, don't commit fornication, adultery. The people of ancient Israel were down below committing that wholesale while Moses was up before God on Mount Sinai getting that in writing with the other commandments not to do. Oh yeah, we'll obey? Baloney. You stiff-necked heifers. You disobey every chance you get and refuse to repent of it unless God puts you in captivity. And God says, okay, have it your way. I'll give you plenty of rope. And then I give you warning, too, through Ezekiel. Here's what's coming if you don't repent. Boom, all of your cities laid waste, could never have been done without hydrogen bombs. And that's how it's going to be done. All of your cities will be bombed with hydrogen bombs. And a third, Ezekiel explains further in the chapter in detail that 1/3 of the people die immediately from that seal of war, the missile attack. That's the second seal, the red horse of war. Another third die from the next two seals, not seals, but yeah, it is seals, third and fourth seal. The third seal being the black horse of famine, the fourth seal being the pale horse of loimus, disease epidemic. Also it includes death by other forms, seismic activity, by wild animals, and by terake, the Greek word for general trouble, chaos, sedition, the beginning of sorrows, the general trouble leading up to but not including the great, grandiose trouble or tribulation of the fifth seal. And so the second third of the people will die by famine and disease epidemic from the fallout from the missiles. Okay, to say it in simple terms. 1/3 die by direct hit of the missiles, another third die by the fallout. It poisons the water, it poisons the air. People they have no food, no water, they starve. And when you starve, nutrition goes down and you get diseases. You'll pick up all kind of viruses. And the present virus, you read some of the information about from health scientific writings that tell you, look, vaccines only work for so long because the thing you vaccinate against has the power to mutate. And so a vaccine this year against a certain thing, if using a true vaccine, not this crazy new RNA altering, mRNA altering your DNA type vaccine that's never been tested that much before and permanently alters a person's DNA, and the in-depth explanations about that, you should, don't let the media fool you or government people fool you. Do some reading and study on your own. People are passing that around, and be sure you get some of those things and read them before you say, okay, I'll be one of the first, I'll go out like our government leaders are and take this vaccination. They may have a special version of that for the leaders that doesn't include all this mess. Look, there's a lot going on, friends. You really need to educate yourself. And beside, the real bottom line of this is God says, next week I'll dig up some scriptures we can go through about how God points out there's no cure outside of God for these things. God's behind some of allowing this to happen, and the way these things work, a virus can mutate. So your vaccine today, that let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they were to come up with one that doesn't alter your DNA permanently, but that uses the principle they've used in the past, which is a theory, by the way, and is a problem for some people with a weak immune system. You give them the old theory of a vaccine was you give a person a little bit of the flu virus or whatever they're wanting to vaccinate against. You give them a little bit in the vaccination, and then the body is able to create antibodies to throw that little bit off. Not the major dose if you really had to. So that if you came across somebody with a major dose of virus that you get infected with, you've already got the antibodies started with the vaccine, so they quickly multiply and knock out the big dose of the virus. So that's the theory behind how that should work. But people with a weak immune system, they give them even a little bit of a virus, and the body can't produce the antibodies because its immune system is weak and ineffective, and then that little virus grows and takes off, becomes the full thing, and the person dies, and they've killed them with the vaccine. So even your medical people recognize that possibility and potential. But when they're making big bucks off that stuff, are they going to warn you very big about let's get them in and rake in these bucks from the mass of people we're able to scare to death with the media and rack in all these bucks? And especially with one that's not even totally proven yet. Look, hats off to the president we've had for the good he's done for the past many years, but he let the political forces and the scare of losing office throw him into going wild. What do they call that thing? Warp speed? They went into warp speed trying to develop something that needs a lot. Even if you're into that world of going the medical route, the medical world itself, if it's true to you, recognizes that a lot more testing is needed before you put this out on the masses. So, buyer beware. Here's your caveat. Take warning. All right, but brother, many of you know many of you who trust God for your healing, you're not going to go with man's way on this thing anyway. You don't want to. You need to learn a way that you are able to legally resist to protect yourself from some of the stuff that men would do to you. And it's a time we definitely need to be on our knees. All right, did I cover what I was going to cover? Because I said I didn't finish that verse, and then we're going to sing a hymn. And I do want to remind you of a verse I do have on our Bible display about what we should be praying right now from Matthew 14:20. I mentioned last night, and I said I would get the verse from Mark 13, the parallel chapter, that mentions the same thing that we should be praying right now in the winter because of the threat of this thing being the stage being set, and with Christ having given a warning about the parable of the fig tree and all the trees, that and he gives the example of when you see the little buds on the tree bloom out and blossom, know that you know that summer is nigh, summer is near. And he said, likewise, meaning this is a comparison. When you see the seals that precede the opening of the fifth seal, Great Tribulation, when you see them happen, when you see them become more frequent, more intense, have greater impact, meaning the comparison, like when you see little buds become bigger and more of them open up and, summer's near. He said, when these four seals are happening, you know that the kingdom of God is near. We've got to go through the fifth seal before Christ can return and usher in and restore the kingdom. That fifth seal runs for 3.5 years. And that's why with the wise understand. That's why when he says the kingdom of God is near, he's saying the opening of this fifth seal is near to start the 3.5-year countdown clock to the kingdom of God. And if this thing is near, and it's going to commence with round 3 of World War and the destruction of all the cities of the United Kingdom and the United States. I'll finish this verse in a second. I've got to address the woman that was trying to tell a bunch of people, like Lot's wife was trying to say, honey, we don't need to leave Sodom and Gomorrah. God can protect us right in our home, just like he protected us from those people trying to, come in and get the angels. God could strike them all dead out there. He could protect us in our home with what he's prophesied against Sodom and Gomorrah. He just protect our home. He could. Oh yeah, God could do that, but that's not his plan. That was not his plan. He said, no, my plan is I'm destroying the whole thing. You guys, to be safe, get out of there. And I've given you a way of escape. You need to do it the way I tell you, and you need to do it now. Because if you wait even a day, too bad. You're part of the destruction. And so, as Lot and his wife, remember what happened to Lot's wife. God tells us to remember that. She looked back, meaning as she looked back, she was longing to go back there. It's kind of like, do we really have to go? I want back. I'm going back there. I want to go back there. And even though she's waiting on her husband, she turned around and looked like, I want to go back. God fulfilled his promise to turn her into a pillar of salt. Now, you people that try to say this prophecy about God destroying the entire country, laying waste all the cities, 1/3 being killed in the direct hit, and the second third being killed by the fallout, the radiation, famine, disease epidemic, third and fourth seals, and then the final third being taken captive. Oh yeah, God just protect me in my home while all this terrible destruction goes on around me, and while everybody else is taken captive, well, I'm still here in my home, snug as a bug under the rug. Oh yeah, well, how are you going to breathe this rotten air? God is going to protect just the air in your home? How are you going to drink water? Turn on that tap, it's going to be full of radiation. There ain't going to be no grocery store you can go to and buy fresh water. There are no springs you're going to get fresh water from. Oh, yeah, got to pop up a spring under my house. Well, good luck. As soon as you step outside your house, Germans are going to shoot you. They're trying to take people captive. Oh, God's going to protect me at my home. Well, all these Germans around rounding up the third that remain alive to be taken captive. Oh, yeah, they're just going to leave you there. Oh, yeah, God's going to protect me in my home. Yeah, well, try putting it together with Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot's wife. Honey, God will protect us in our home back here. I'm going back there. Pillar of salt. Some of you people better wise up. And those of you who listen to people that try to tell you this bunch of malarkey, you shouldn't even give them ear. Don't even comment back to them. If they're a friend and you could reach them by commenting back to them, good luck. But do it. But otherwise, good luck, because a lot of these people, they're set in their thinking. They heard, unfortunately, one of God's end-time apostles' sons say, God can protect you in your home. That son didn't believe a lot of the things his father taught and understood from inspiration from God. He just mimicked a lot of it, was successful, very eloquent speaker, but he had his own rebellious mindset. And that was one of them, to tell you that God can just protect you in your home. You don't need to go off this place of protection. Baloney. Remember Lot's wife. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah. Because God's got a way he's going to do this, and if you don't take that way, this beast has dominion of the whole world. The only exception announced in the Bible and God's Word to the beast's dominion is one little stretch of land on the earth described in Daniel 11, verses 40 and 41. It's east of the Jordan River. You can read it. It talks about the land of the children of Ammon in the north, Moab in the middle, Edom in the south. The entrance way part of Edom is at Petra, where there's big rock walls that reminded Mr. Armstrong of the gelled up walls of the Red Sea. Normally the Red Sea is just an ocean. But when God did the miracle, he caused the wind to blow the waters, cold wind blew against the waters, separated the waters, and caused them to ice up the edges of the water long enough for Israel to get through. And Pharaoh sees the gelled up walls and Israel going through. I want them slaves back. Y'all go get them. And the military goes through, and God says, no, I'm protecting my people. Down come the walls. He melted the ice. The Red Sea joined back together with Pharaoh's army, drowning in the midst of the Red Sea. And in Revelation 12, verses 15 and 16, is a prophecy for us today. For those who are counted worthy to escape, the devil, after you're flown on two wings of a great eagle, in verse 14 of Revelation 12, God says that the devil, who's angry against the woman, the true church, sends an army, verse 15, against those accounted worthy to escape. They've already been flown over on two wings of a great eagle to the Middle East. Then they have to watch for Israel to be surrounded by an army, and that's the cue. Get down to the mountains. Get down to the Rock Mountain Way entrance to the protected area at Petra. If you go too soon, you'll be bitten by a scorpion or a snake or something like that. You got to go with the way God says do it when he says do it. Watch for the army. You're already flown over to the Middle East. Watch for the army around Jerusalem. Now, boom, down to Petra. And Petra's not the stopping point. You got to just get through Petra. Because God's going to cause those rock walls of Petra to fall in on the army that the devil sends when he opens up a sinkhole. Verse 16, he's going to open up the earth to help the woman. The woman, the true church, but only the portion of the true church accounted worthy to escape, are going to get through that passageway into Edom, Moab, Ammon. All that area is mentioned in the Bible as being protected from the king of the north, this beast of the Great Tribulation. the devil's army swallowed up. And then verse 17 talks about something. I'll just mention it. I've mentioned it in greater detail in times before, but it's very good at this time for us to be reminded, because this thing is about to go, brethren. I mean, it's ready to go. It's up to God to decide when. But it's just be aware as you watch. This thing's ready to go. The crown is protected. It's over there ready to be transported over to Frankfurt, Germany. They already have a replica of it in the museum in Frankfurt, Germany. Push came to shove, they could use that replica in a coronation ceremony. But they'll get this. They'll pick it up in Vienna, transport it. You know, the Pope's got to fly, has got to go to Frankfurt from Rome, Italy anyway. So they'll transport this crown from Vienna, Austria, over to Frankfurt, Germany. You know, it's just Austria and Germany border. And they'll just transport it over to Frankfurt. The Pope will come over. Whoever the new emperor will be, we don't know whether it's this Pope or the previous or new Pope to come who will hold this coronation ceremony, but you know, it'll be one or the other. And of a representative of the Vatican, a Pope. The woman in now a woman in prophecy can either be the true church or the false church. So the woman in Revelation 17 is the false church, provides that whore, that woman that represents the beast church from Rome, and she'll fly to Frankfurt and put this crown on the head of the seventh king of the next beast, lying dormant, sleeping, healing, be ready to be revived, who will, verse 8 of Revelation 17, ascend out of the bottomless pit. Brethren, are you getting it? Oh, there's a lot of detail. Well, make note, make yourself a graph, think about it, meditate on it, pray about it, because the stage is set. The first four seals are very active for this fifth seal, opening of the Great Tribulation, when this crown will be worn by the beast that ascends, verse 8, Revelation 17, out of the bottomless pit. And that 3.5 years of Great Tribulation has begun. Those who will have been accounted worthy to escape will have escaped, been chased by the devil, will be in the place of nourishment, protection, safety, final training. And then, what about those who weren't accounted worthy? They're mentioned in Revelation 3 and verse 17. We'll cover that again at another time, or go back to some of my past sermons, Bible studies, where I've covered that in detail. I want to get to the verse on the screen that mentions what we should be praying for right now, and I want us to sing those hymns because, we're out of time. Well, all right, we're going to sing a hymn to close up, and I'll pop those scriptures up there on the screen, and then we got to close it out for today. Let me see. Do I have? Yeah, this shot here I can go back to, and we need to change the screen. Oh, I just need to rotate this so we can get back this way, Stephen. Let's see, so we can get a song that we can sing together up on the screen. Yeah, here's a good one we can sing. I will praise thee, O eternal. And then on this screen, I've got one of those two verses I wanted to mention to you from Mark. Let's bring that full forward for a moment, and we'll go back to where we're going to sing. Get the lower third out of the way. We need it out of the way for the music. 2. Here's the one I mentioned last night I would pull out from Mark 13 for you. It's verse 18, where Christ was instructing us during this time when the Great Tribulation is ready to commence, the fifth seal ready to open. But we don't want it to happen during the winter. Let's pray and ask God that God hold this off at least till spring. And remember, Father, how Christ instructed us. One of the places, Mark 13:18 here, and Christ instructed us to pray that our flight, referenced as an escape in Luke 21:36, referenced as being via two wings of a great eagle in Revelation 12 and verse 14. Pray that your flight be not in the winter. And, brethren, in a cold winter, having to be outside, it just makes good sense to not have to be traveling in winter and being in places where you'll be outdoors overnight, as we'll have to be, during this escape process, some people would freeze to death in the winter. So we need to be praying our flight be not in the winter. In verse 18 of Mark 13, the emphasis is put on just the part that Christ said about pray that your flight be not in the winter. Now, if we go back to verse 20 of Matthew 24, we see Christ also includes, and we should add this from time to time too, God help our escape, our flight. Let's put that full screen. Pray that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. That tells us it's going to be a very traumatic event. The hatred against us during the time of this escape flight, is going to be pretty great. Probably the government may be providing the modern aircraft for our flight via the symbolic two wings of a great eagle. Of course, God could do this literally with great eagles, too. It's his option. He can do, as he does in most of Revelation, he can do it symbolically, or just like he did for Jonah. He could provide he provided a great fish for Jonah. He says for those accounted worthy to escape, he's going to provide a great eagle. That could be symbol for aircraft, two wings, aircraft, or could be literal great eagles. So be ready, John Byron. All right, and Stephen. And the rest of you. Who knows? He could do it for all of us. Great eagles. Symbol or real. You want to be there, and you want to pray that our flight, that flight, however God does it exactly, is not in the winter, nor on the Sabbath day. Okay? All right, we got that. So let's go back to a close-up screen where we can sing a hymn together in closing up. And, all right, come on, fumble fingers here. Okay, all right, we got it. So let's sing this one from Psalm 9, page 8 in the purple hymnal. We'll have the lyrics on the screen. We'll close out with this. Guys, Dale, Patrick, New York, you ready to practice one more? All right, let's, this will be also a 4/4 timing. Down, in, out, up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's finish up the service today, brethren, in worship to God, especially with this hymn, I Will Praise Thee, O Eternal. Everybody together on verse 1. Will praise Thee, O Eternal. I will show forth Thy great, O Thou great God eternal. I will sing praise to Thy name. Ba-boom, ba-boom. But my foes shall fall, stumble. At Thy presence they shall fall. Ba-boom, boom, boom. The eternal judges rightly, and forever He will rule. Everybody on verse 2. He removes their name forever, even their memory dies. Ba-boom, ba-boom. But He judges all with fairness. He will rule with equity. Ba-boom, boom, boom. All who know His name shall trust Him. He will not forsake His own. Everybody, let's finish up on verse 3. To the Lord who dwells in, sing to Him and praise Him. Among the nations, all His glorious works, ba-boom, ba-boom. He avenges all His people. He will not forget their cry, ba-boom, boom, boom. To the Lord who dwells in Zion, sing to Him and praise His name, ba-boom, ba-boom. All right, again, thank you for those who sang along with us. And brethren, thank you for joining us today for this Sabbath service, AM to the U.S., PM to the UK, for this 4th day of the 10th month on God's Holy Sacred Calendar, 19th day of December. And again, if you missed last night's Bible study, I'm going to encourage you to go look in our archive at cogtv.org and look up last night's Bible study. And brethren, that's it for today. We're just a few minutes over time, so I'm going to wish you a real happy rest of the Sabbath, and hope you'll be able to join us again next Friday night for the Friday night Bible study, or for next Sabbath, and for next Sabbath, AM to the Sabbath service. Happy Sabbath, everybody. Thanks for joining me.